Emulation of attacks to validate Cisco security defenses. All right, the 20-step test. This is actually leveraging AttackIQ. There's tons of capabilities in this tool. Highly recommend having a peek at it. But this 20-step test focuses on testing Cisco Secure Endpoint. So the template includes scenarios that provide a basic function check of Cisco Secure Endpoint deployment with the protect policy for Windows assets. This exercises the ability to both detect and block adversarial behaviors. The assessment is organized into these three tests: behavioral prevention evaluation, in which all scenarios in the test should be prevented. And then we have behavioral detection evaluation, in which all scenarios in the test should be detected. And then sample analysis evaluation, in which all scenarios in the test should be prevented and detected. Now, the supporting operating system is Windows 10 for this particular test. Now, there's always nuance in testing, so it's important that you validate not only what the tool may articulate in its findings, but also based on the technologies that you have in place to determine that in fact it was either detected or prevented. Now, this is just a breakdown from AttackIQ. It kind of nicely maps this out to the MITRE ATT&CK framework and calls out specifically the tactics and techniques that are being tested using the enterprise matrix. All right, let's get started. We're in Cisco XDR. We're going to clients, and we're just validating that we have the right modules installed, and we do. We have the network visibility module. We can look at device details here. We get a good sense of what's happening with Windows Security Center. The bottom line is we have Cisco Secure Endpoint deployed and operating. It is in audit mode, right? We're going to test this first in audit, and then we'll move to prevention. So let's validate that. Let's go ahead into Cisco Secure Endpoint. We can see that the audit policy is applied to that particular asset. And we'll go to events. We can see that that's the last refresh time, but we're going to validate the endpoint to ensure that it is in audit mode and it's not isolated. All right, everything looks good so far. Let's go ahead and jump into AttackIQ. And we're going to go into assessments. And we're going to create a new assessment. We're going to choose a template here, and we're going to search for Cisco. And we can see there's two that's highlighted here on the left. We'll go ahead and click that. And we can see here we have Cisco Secure Endpoint Baseline for Protect Policy, and we have a Cisco Secure Endpoint Baseline for Server Policy. You can see each of them have 20 scenarios. We're going to go ahead and grab the first one here, and here's the breakdown. Dump SAM hashes with Mimikatz using volume shadow copy. You can come in and edit each one of these if there's certain parameters that you need to set specific to your environment. It highlights the mitigations as well as the MITRE ATT&CK tactic and techniques that are associated with it. We're not going to make any changes here, but we will go through each one. You can see detection. You can see there's some capabilities here, as well as sample analysis evaluation. So let's go ahead and create that assessment. We'll create new, and it's going to grab each one of those tests and bundle it in. And we're going to do this test against our asset that has AttackIQ installed. So the agent is installed on our test machine, as well as Cisco Secure Endpoint and the network visibility module. The other really cool thing is you can integrate with AttackIQ. So the findings from things like Cisco Secure Firewall or Cisco Secure Endpoint actually feed back into the platform and let you know. So here we are. We ran the test. Obviously, we fast forwarded here. The test take a little bit of time. And remember, we're in audit mode, and we expect this not prevented, right? But what's interesting is there's a couple things here that call out prevention. I probably have to dig into that a little bit, but that's really not the gist of the session here. But we can see one thing was not detected. And if I dig into it, I can see this SHA-21CA, blah, 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 right? I can actually take that SHA and do an investigation on it. I can see it was successfully copied to the asset. as dark comment. So we're going to come back and review that a little bit later. All right, we can look at MITRE ATT&CK and we can see very quickly all the things that we've detected with this particular test, outside of that one nuance that we've mentioned around that SHA. We'll come back to that in a second. And it breaks it down. It says 100% detected everywhere. The only thing that was missed there was that dark comment. Now I could take a screenshot of this. I can use it in my reports for later, etc. So pretty neat summary of what took place. And now I know where I stand. Now let's go into Cisco Secure Endpoint, and man, is it littered with events. There's a tremendous amount of events that were detected here. And remember, it's in audit mode, so there was no prevention here. So if I go ahead and scroll back a little bit, we can look at that timeline just to get an idea of some of the things that we've detected over this particular. So here we are. We're starting right here. We see some sandboxing. We see Mimikatz dump credentials, the processes that were involved. Drop that down. That's a critical event. And again, all the MITRE ATT&CK tactics and techniques are being flagged. If associated, we have indications of compromise. We see excessively long PowerShell here that was triggered. Let's go ahead and go back to the original page. So let's go back one here. And again, you can see a ton of PowerShell because that's what they're using to execute a lot of the commands. There's Mimikatz again, dump credentials, scroll up, and you can start looking at some of the file names here. Certainly things that we are aware of when it comes to certain campaigns or threat actors. You can see Sam here, and we can see tactics. Again, there's almost like 4 or 5 tactics and multiple different techniques that were involved. Now, I did a quick search on that SHA, and what I did find interesting, although it didn't detect it on the endpoint, I'd have to dig into why here. We certainly knew about it. You can see here, dark comment, remote access Trojan. And we can break that down here, and you can see there's that SHA. So Cisco's certainly aware of it. And again, this is the nuance, right? Is that, again, when you're testing with these tools, you want to validate and go beyond just what a report might be telling you, because the truth of the matter might be significantly different. So, okay, let's go ahead in the Cisco XDR. Let's expand this out. And now what we can start seeing is the file names, the processes, the system, the registry key entries, the URLs, the IP addresses. And when you double click these, again, this is all about providing you the right information at the right time without overwhelming you with data. And so if you wanted to know what each one of the SHAs, because there happens to be 20 of them versus one, you can just double click and drill into it. We can see all the detections that were triggered here. And check this out. When we look at the investigation, we can see the PW dump 7. We can change the way we view this. We can see the collection.psi or PS1, the PowerShell script for collection that took place. I can change the timeline. I can pivot from here. I can actually very quickly make decisions on any of these observables or indicators that have triggered an event at any point in time within the interface itself. All right, let's go ahead and move into prevention mode. So let's go to the asset. We'll go ahead and move the group into a policy that has prevention turned on. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll move that policy. And then we'll go to events. That should get updated there. And then what we want to do is make sure that we update this policy. Go ahead and update now. And there we are, protect policy. Okay, we're in place, not isolated, all good. Let's go ahead and test with prevention turned on. Let's see what happens. And what I found was interesting here, actually. And again, it's not about showing that we can do 100% prevention. Yeah, we're great and everything else. It's really about understanding the tooling and understanding the capabilities of the platform and how well we are able to either detect or prevent threats. We'll go ahead and run that test now. Let's run it. And again, the beauty of video, and it's done. It takes a little bit of time. And we can see right away that there's some gaps here. So that's interesting. And what we see is some of the events that took place erred and one not prevented. That one not prevented, remember, there's a nuance there. I have to figure out that. I'm not really concerned about that one because we do know about it specifically. But there's a bunch of the items here that were erred. So, and it's showing that, they might have erred, but it's not showing coverage. So let's go ahead and have a look at that. That was PW dump 7 or something like that. So let's go ahead and look for, that file actually was quarantined successfully. So it's interesting, if you would take the report as it sat, you would think that maybe you weren't able to detect or prevent that particular activity, when in fact it did. Now, I've got a great relationship with AttackIQ. That's the disclaimer there. I can certainly work with them to see what might have went wrong, whether our end or their end, the feed into their platform. But that's really not the point. The point here is testing the technology and validating whether or not it does what it says it's supposed to do. And in this case, the results were success, but I had to dig a little bit deeper into it. So detection outside of that one file, dark comment that we do know about, we provided 100% coverage here for detection. Prevention, though, really looked like this. Right? So there's some gaps. You can see the red here that were called out. 0% prevented for credential access. But in fact, if you peel this back, those files were prevented from being executed and therefore prevented the attack. So I've updated this manually so you can see the difference. Again, this is where analysis comes in. This is the human element to the equation. And the only outlier was that dark comment that wasn't detected. And again, not concerned about it at this point in time because Talos is fully aware of it. It is in the malware analytics platform. Maybe it was a timing thing. Maybe it was the integrations. Who knows? But the bottom line is I'm pretty happy with the results.